decided to keep everybody awake this morning. Big old train came by, so I rolled up in here at about 10:42. Tom barks, he's like, said, "How's your deodorant, Tom?" "It's all right, it's okay. Good to see you." It's nice to be here. For those of you whom I do not know, I'm Reverend Alane. And I don't do things quite like other folks, as you will soon find out. So, those readings that we did, I want you to think about that John reading. And I want you to imagine it as if it were done yesterday, as if the Pharisees were alive now, as if the blind man was healed this morning, and as if his parents had Facebook. And the Pharisees are texting back and forth, right?
What does he think he is? What's he doing? He can't be doing that on the Sabbath.
Right? They're texting back and forth. Well, get on Facebook, find out what's going on. You know, it's all over Facebook. Somebody thinks he can be healing on the Sabbath. LOL, SMH. Right? And there's this back and forth. Who does he think he is? What does he think he's doing? Let's go ask the blind guy. You know, I think the blind now he sees guy might have some things he wants to be doing other than answering a bunch of questions. Like, I don't know, looking at sunsets, right? Checking out baby smiles. There are some things you might want to do other than answering a bunch of questions about how'd you get your sight. I don't care. I can see now. I think the guy who gave me my sight's pretty fantastic. I don't need to answer a bunch of questions about it, right? But instead, the Pharisees are getting all on Facebook and causing trouble. You know, probably they're on 12 on your side, making some complaints, right? You know, we want this investigated. We don't eat lunch at the house of Jesus because we think there's some laws that he's broken here, right? So, meanwhile, a miracle has taken place. A blind guy can now see. Are they talking about that? You know, are they talking about this wonderful, life-changing event? No, they're upset because some laws have been broken. They're picky because laws have been broken. And then they go to his parents. You know, his parents who are probably the happiest they've ever been. And they want to know what the parents, what do you think about all this? Parents who have probably from the child's birth wondered, you know, was this something in me? Did I make them blind? Was it something in my family? Did we do this? Was it something in the pregnancy the mom's wondering? You know, everybody's wondering all his life. And now he can see. And now somebody wants to know, whose fault is this? Whose fault is this? And so the parents get nervous and they're like, he's over 18, ask him. I don't know, check his driver's license. Maybe that, I don't know. So it's all this, go ask him, go tell him, go do that. And that's what reminds me of Facebook and texting, right? You know, comment on that. And now Facebook has a new thing, so you can comment directly on somebody else's comment. So now not everybody has to listen to your mess, right? You know, if you want to talk about what Tigger has to say, you can just comment on Tigger's line and skip what Ricky has to say. So then the Pharisees have all this stuff with the parents, and then they have all this stuff with the healed man, and then it goes on and on, back and forth, back and forth. But a miracle has taken place. And there's all this back and forth. Meanwhile, we have the two other readings, right? And they're about talking as well. They're about talking as well. In the psalm is about, let me speak on behalf of God. But it's not just saying, I want to be the one who speaks on behalf of God. I want to be the one who praises God. It's sort of a, please remind me to do that. Please remind me to be the one who says these things about you. Where it says, my lips will pour forth praise because you teach me your statutes. My tongue will sing of your promise, for all your commandments are right. Let your hand be ready to help me, for I have chosen your precepts. Let's think about that as now as well, right? A human. This came from a human heart. Human hearts aren't always certain. So you can imagine the human heart that impelled the human hand to write this down, that was saying, sometimes I have doubt. Sometimes I think, this isn't going to work, and I don't want to praise you, Lord, because I don't think you're going to do it for me. I don't think you're going to do it for me. So instead, I write this down to say, my lips will put forth praise. I will remember to do that, even when things aren't looking good. I'll remember. I'll remember. And the purpose of this psalm is to remind us that in times when the bickering gets too much and the doubt gets too much, what I'll remember to say, right? When all those voices and all that talk is going on, what I'll remember to do, because we need those reminders. And then the final biblical reading we had is one that probably we all know from the book of Isaiah, where we talk about, where the prophet says, I am a man of unclean lips. And then the lips are cleansed, right? The seraph touched his mouth with the live coal. His guilt departs. And the voice of God says, whom shall I send? And I say, here I am, send me. And we often use that in ordinations. It was used in my ordination. It's used in ordinations all the time. And it's an idea of ministry. What will bring you forth? Here I am, send me. But I don't know about the other ministers in the room. Martha, I wasn't there for your ordination. Did you get a hot coal to the lips? No? Carolyn, any hot coals involved in your ordination? I had a little lip balm, a little chapstick, on mine, but no hot coals came to the lips, right? I had trust. People trusted in me. We had a lot of hope. We had some ham sandwiches, right? And we had this sort of feeling of the psalm, remind us to do the best we can when times get tough. Let's try and do the best we can when times get tough, right? But we didn't actually get that whole coal on the mouth experience. So how is it that I'm the one who gets sent? How is it that ministers are the one who gets sent? We didn't get the coal on the mouth. How do we still get sent? All right, so those are the reasons behind what I chose. Now we're going to get to the inspiration of life that I wanted to talk about today. Because life keeps kicking me in the teeth and then giving me new teeth, which is a blessing. The children didn't understand that when they were littler, because they have baby teeth and they lose their teeth and then they get new ones. And then they'd say, well, Mom, why can't you do the same thing? We lose our teeth, so what are you worried about if you lose your teeth? I'm like, Mommy's not a shark, okay? Mommy loses her teeth and they're just gone, right? Except metaphorically in life, when we get kicked in the teeth, we do get to grow them back again. So there are a couple of life lessons I've had that refer back to these scriptures. And one involves you, Jenny Lovey. So Jenny and I thought we were being so clever. We're grown-ups, we have education, we think we're so clever. At least we thought we were more clever than an 11-year-old. There he is. And the 11-year-old needed some help last year. And so Jenny and I met together, and we're like, what are we going to do to help this little kid, right? Meeting of the minds, the smart people meet together, and we decide that Jefferson, my son, will go over to her school, and she will figure out a way to get him a little after-school help. And we've got this all figured out because we're the wise parents. We're the voices of reason, you know. The metaphorical coal has touched our lips. We're the ones who can do this, right? So I send him over there the first week, and he comes back and he's really happy. And I think, the wise Dr. Loving. So I send him back the next week, and he comes back and he's still all happy. Everything's going great. And he starts telling me about a Mr. Whitaker under whom he is studying. Like, excellent, wonderful news. So the third week, he goes back, and Jenny and I start talking about it. I'm like, oh, this is so great. He loves Mr. Whitaker. And Jenny's like, yeah, about that. Our plan, you know, I thought maybe he'd work in the office with me, or we'd get him some tutoring, but that didn't actually happen. The week he came, I was really busy, and we couldn't work that out. And so somehow he ended up with the janitor, Mr. Whitaker. And here it is, May 10th, 2015, over a year later, and Jefferson is still with the janitor, Mr. Whitaker, who has been the best mentor Jefferson ever could have. They're best friends. And he goes every week, and they've become great guys. And Jenny and I had absolutely nothing to do with it. All of our thinking, all of our smart talk, all of our training, we just put him in the right place. And the forces of goodness did the rest. We had nothing to do with it. Jefferson sought out good, knew good when he saw it, and he took care of the rest. So that made me think about prophets, and who are the prophets, and who do we listen to? Who are we going to listen to? Recently, Bernie Sanders, who is a progressive politician, announced his bid for the United States presidency in 2016. I've followed Bernie Sanders for a long time because Bernie Sanders speaks on behalf of a lot of things I believe in, and no one else seems to in politics. So I was like, oh, there's a crazy senator in Vermont, and he believes in a lot of things I do. And then he ran for president, and I went, oh, Bernie. So, God love him. So I thought, oh, you know, I ought to wear a Bernie t-shirt or something, you know. And of course, Bernie, because he believes in a lot of things I believe in, all his t-shirts have writing from they're like turtlenecks, because they have writing from here to like here. You know, there are no pithy slogans for Bernie. It's words and words and words and words. Except for one t-shirt that said, Bernie speaks for me. And I thought, rebel. But progressives are not usually the type of people who say someone speaks for me. You know, we're all over the map. We're for LGBTQ rights. We're for environmentalism. We're for legalization of marijuana. You know, they're all different types of people coming together who don't necessarily agree with each other on certain things. So the idea that Bernie speaks for any one of us is kind of anathema. And I thought that's pretty daring to suggest that Bernie speaks for me. So I thought, okay, that's kind of a prophet idea. I thought, who would be someone who I would say speaks for me? It's not Bernie, by the way, but, you know, other than maybe Big Bird, who is a prophet who I would say really speaks for me? And that made me ask a lot of questions. And I invite you to think, who speaks for you? If you had to think of a prophet who speaks for you, a modern day prophet, someone who is alive today, who says what you believe, who is it? And that requires that you answer some questions. First of all, what do you believe? You know, Those people who are wearing the Bernie Sanders Speaks for Me t-shirts must know what they believe and know what Bernie Sanders believes, you know? Good for them. That's two things they know, right? And then why do you believe it? What do you believe and why? One of the biggest problems I think a lot of us have with the religious right is that those of us who I came from a very liberal religious upbringing. Those who came from a conservative upbringing, who rebelled against it, said, you know, I was taught all these things, and I was never taught why. And so when I got older and I asked why, it all crumbled down, because no one ever taught me why. They taught me this framework, but as soon as I asked questions, it crumbled down. So what do you believe and why? And then next, how do you live your life to support what you believe? You know, the Pharisees had these laws, but how did they live their life to support them? If you can't support a man being healed, the whole point of that passage is if you can't support a man being healed, is your belief something that we want to follow? And then, who are your teachers? If you understand who your teachers are, then you better understand who could speak for you. So when I think biblically about who could speak for me, I of course go to the prophets. And some of you know who my favorite prophet is. Does anybody remember who my favorite prophet is? This is Jeopardy, and you will win. Absolutely not. Anyone remember my favorite prophet? He picks from a sycamore fig and is a shepherd. It's Amos. Hey! Yay! Two in the back! Hooray! Sorry, most people didn't get that. Nice. Thanks. So the prophet Amos is my favorite, and the reason the prophet Amos is my favorite is because he gets ticked off. He gets ticked off in this really funny way. Now, Jeremiah, ticked off. Jeremiah is wacko, okay? I love it, but Jeremiah is a little wacko. Ezekiel gets ticked off. Ezekiel a little over the top, right? Isaiah is like the Zen prophet. You know, he keeps it together. Micah is this beautiful, peaceful prophet, right? Amos I can relate to. Amos goes out there, Amos does his prophesying, you know, heads to another land, does his thing, says, God sent me to say this. Ta-da! The prophets of the other land say, huh? Who are you? Go home. And nobody wants to hear that. It's a bunch of bunk. And Amos said, whoa, 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 whoa. Look, I didn't want to come here. I had stuff I was doing. You know, I was picking figs and walking behind sheep and stuff. And I don't know how to do this. I didn't go to school for this, but God sent me here, and this is really embarrassing, and I didn't want to do this, but I'm here. So listen. And I totally relate to that, you know? Amos speaks for me. You know, he's my dude. Who speaks for you? Who is your dudette? Who is your dude? Who speaks for you? And the reason I like to think about this, I like to think about Jefferson and Mr. Whitaker, is Jenny and I would not have thought Jefferson and Mr. Whitaker. We wouldn't have pictured those two together. And yet they have things in common. They have conversations of shared interests. And one can speak for the other now that they have been friends for over a year. They understand each other and they can represent one another. The title of the service is Who Would You Repeat, right? Of all the voices, whose will you repeat? So much in adulthood, we're taught to own our own voice, which is absolutely essential in knowing who we are. But in our faith tradition, in our understanding of who we are to become, the question is also, embrace their voice and speak it as your own. Now, in the Christian tradition, we often say, Jesus. Really? Are you really prepared to speak with that voice, that rebel voice that requires you to turn the other cheek, that requires you to give what you have to others? You know, Joel Osteen, I don't know if you saw recently about the robbery that occurred at Joel Osteen's church that was like $6 million on one Sunday. And all of a sudden everybody's like, you're taking in $6 million on one Sunday? What? $6 million on one Sunday? My fingers don't go that high. That's a lot of money. What's Jesus telling you to do with all that money? You know? I don't know. It seems to me Jesus is like flipping the table over with all that money. Just seems to me. Whose words are you willing to repeat as your own? Who are you willing to take on as your own? If that coal touches your lips, what are you going to say? Now, this congregation, I have two more stories to tell you. This congregation has allowed me and welcomed me to run a bereavement support group. We've been running for 18 months now. We've had over 45 people involved in the support group, and we meet every week. We're the only support group in the city of Richmond that meets every single week. And since we had the boiler issues, we started meeting at the Robin Inn, which turned out to be its own little thing. Evidently, there is a tomato sauce missionary issue that I did not know about. There are certain people that pizza is their blessing. And so they come out to the Robin Inn. And the reason we have it every week, most bereavement groups run for 6 weeks. You come and you go for 6 weeks and you talk about certain issues with other people who are in mourning. And then you go home, you know, and that's it. Well, what I found in groups like that is that we all can keep a mask on for 6 weeks. We can all be somebody else for 6 weeks, right? We can all say, I'm all right for 6 weeks, you know. Oh, Tracy, I'm strong. I'm good for 6 weeks. No problem. But you put me and Tracy together on week 7, and they don't have the lasagna special that week. Tracy, I need you. I need you. They don't have any lasagna. We need to talk, my friend. We need to talk. I found that when you don't have an order of service, when you don't have some electionary, when you don't have a plan, people are real with each other. You know? And when we're all sitting around at the Robin Inn and we just show up and you don't know who's going to show up, you have no idea. When my little Betty Boop here will come in, she'll come in just a giggling, you know, just as happy as she can be. She'll come in. All of a sudden, everybody's real, and we can tell the truth. And we have a woman in the group who came for 4 weeks and told us on the 4th week, my husband died 6 weeks ago, and you're the only people outside my family who know. Wow. Didn't tell her neighbors, didn't tell her friends she sees, you know, her acquaintances. Some people at church didn't even know. She didn't tell anyone. But she would tell us. And we're strangers. But we got the lasagna special going, right? Why is that? Because she trusted us. Because she saw something in us that was true and honest. And that she was willing to connect with. Which is surprising and a little disturbing to me. Because I wanted to say, here you are living in a community, but you're not willing to be authentic in that community, you know? Anybody ever been inauthentic in a community? I don't know. Anyone? Does that sound familiar? Probably not. Yeah. Anyway, she was in something called a closet. Y'all probably never heard of that. So, what is my message to you? My message is that biblically we're often called to do these things that they sound so great. They sound so great. Oh, here my Lord, I'm stepping forth. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be this voice. I'm gonna say it like it is. I'm gonna be prophetic. And that's hard. That is really hard. And it's hard not to be caught up in that kind of Pharisee way of bickering. And it's hard, it's terrifying, the thought of this kind of purification by hot coal, whatever that metaphor is to you, whether it's authenticity, whether it's telling people close to you the truth about what you care about or believe, right? Whether it's admitting that you have different beliefs than everyone else in your family, whether it's admitting that the person who speaks for you is different than what everyone thinks it is. But the gifts that come from that, the gifts that come from that are really what Scripture is talking about. And I don't think that Scripture was ever meant to make us a bunch of people who are all alike. If you look, there's something for everyone. My grandmother, God rest her soul, used to tell kids who were like, "The Bible's so boring, I don't want to read it." She would say, "The Bible's fascinating, it's got everything. It's got murder and mystery and sex, and it's got crazy people in it, there are wars, there are all kinds of freaky names you can name your children someday. It's got everything." And it does. It does. And it's not linear. You know, it really is meant to be something for every time in your life and everyone's life. You know, it's not meant to be, the book isn't meant to all be for me. Some of it's meant for you, and some of it's meant for you, and a lot of it's meant for people who lived 2,500 years ago. And a lot of it's mystery. And so knowing which parts of it speak for you and which parts of it don't are absolutely essential. But in order to do that, you need to know what you believe and why, and who is going to speak for you, and how, and what you are willing to let speak for you. So in the week to come, I encourage you to think what your watchwords are. Is your watchword love? Is your watchword authenticity? Is your watchword friendship? Is your what is it? What are the words in your life that express who you are and what you believe in? And then to seek out those who speak those words. And to hear someone else say them for a change. Because that's the inspiration that comes in life. Hearing someone else say those words so you don't have to. So that you can rest in that inspiration. So that you can listen to something else and be lifted up by it. I hope that you are inspired by others. I hope this week is one that brings you hope. I hope that those of you who need some inspiration and are suffering in isolation and in pain, do come and join us on Tuesday night, knowing that you will be loved for exactly who you are. And I hope that all of you know that this is a place where you are loved because you love. And know that that is special. Amen.